So thank you for joining us. We are here to talk about secrets from admins to level up your developer career and what happens when an admin, an Admineloper, and a developer get together. And I'm sure you haven't seen this before, but I'll let you know what it's all about. It's Salesforce forward-looking statements. Don't make any purchasing decisions based on the stuff we tell you because we're not experts on that. Hi, my name's Jean Valonis, and I am addicted to Salesforce. I've been in the Salesforce ecosystem for 12 years. It makes me feel really old. I started out as a lead gen in marketing, routing leads and pulling reports and things like that, and I'm now 5 times certified, and I am a manager of product development at American Express, and I will be your admin storyteller today.
My name is Leslie Gastautis, and right now I'm the Salesforce technical lead for Axiom Law, but I'm the Admineloper on the panel.
Say that 5 times fast.
Admineloper. Celeste Keller is credited with coming up with that term and posting it in her blog. What does it mean? I come from the admin side. I've been adding code to my abilities, more or less, and my responsibilities as well. So it's an in-between place to be. It's very exciting for me. I've leveraged a lot of what David Liu teaches, and specifically Rad Women Who Code. Yay! Incredible, all volunteer, incredible group of women that have gone to the trouble to put together instructional material for female admins who want to learn to code. So they are coming from the administrator track specifically. What else? I got 6 certifications. Mm-hmm. One of them's going to go away, right? Like after all that, one of them's going to disappear in December. And that's it for me.
Awesome. Hi, I'm Megan Brodke. I'm a technical architect with Sunreach Consulting. I started working with Salesforce about a decade ago. I started as a customer success manager for a company that I'd found called Salesforce.com. I eventually became an administrator and then had more responsibilities added to my plate and became a developer. Now I'm a TA, and I'm going to be your developer today.
So that's us. I have a question to ask of you. We do want to have a sense of who all is here. So if you self-identify or call yourself a developer, could you please raise your hand? Because we do want to see, okay. And do you call yourself an administrator in the ecosystem? Oh, heavy on administrators.
Yeah,
okay, cool.
Taking over the room.
All right, and it's okay. Other, is there, okay, there's some other. All right, that's fine. So I have a question for all of you. In the organizations that you're working in, the platforms that you're working in, who is responsible when something goes wrong? Okay. If you didn't raise your hand, you're probably in denial, but that's okay. That's another session. We won't be covering that. Or you just hate it when people in seminars make you raise your hand, and that's all right too. But we're all responsible at some level, and we're all trying to do the best we can. And so are we every day. And while we're doing these things, sometimes we go to special events so that we can learn more. Next slide, please. The reason the 3 of us are here today, I can get myself comfortable, is that we attended Trailhead DX this year. It's only the 2nd time that they've run that. It's a developer-specific event that Salesforce has started. And we hadn't all been together before that. I had met you at Tahoe Dreamin', and we knew each other virtually.
Through the Twitters.
Twitters. And then did you guys?
We had Twitters. I think we met at a couple of events.
Leaders, yeah.
All right.
Group events.
So we're at a developer event, and there might have been a little bit of alcohol involved.
I think there was more than a little.
And we just start geeking out and talking about, like, do we like this? Do we not like that? They should have said this, and what about that? And then we also start telling war stories, things that we have experienced and, all this kind of thing. And then we kind of had a light bulb moment that, a lot of this could be pretty valuable to someone coming into the developer side, whether they're coming from a computer science background or if they're coming from an administrative background as well. And so what we did was we tried to pick the best that we think will help you the most. And in particular situations where there might be miscommunication amongst the parties. And we've rounded up some juicy stuff for you guys today. So I think
We're going to kick it off with Megan, 'cause she's our
developer
developer.
gets to start. All right.
All right. So I'm going to tell you a little story about how you should watch your language and use your eyes. So I was actually at a client site. I had been sent there. I was sitting there with the business analyst as well as with the client and the sales team. The client had only had the business people in the meeting. We had just finished UAT, and they wanted to make some changes. Wow, it was totally possible what they wanted to do, and I got a little bit excited like I tend to do, and I started rambling on. I was talking so fast, everything was blurring together, nobody had any idea what I said.
Slow down, Megan.
But I started to go on and on about how we could just modify the code. We'd be able to use custom settings so that we could have it so that it would be admin controlled. They wouldn't have to make manual updates to their code over and over again. And well, let's just say that the business let my boss know about this lovely incident. I gotta have a great talk about what you need to say when you're in front of clients and how you need to make sure that you're giving the right amount of information and not overloading people, making them feel uncomfortable in the room. So, keeping that in mind, next slide. The big thing for me is learning, to watch your language and use your eyes. Know your audience. Your admins do not know every single piece of your code, and they do not know what you are saying when you go in depth about your code all the time. Some of them do, but not all of them. And when you're sitting in a room with people, keep in mind who your audience is. If they're using specific terminology and it may not be the terms that you're used to, use the terms the client's using and that the customer is using so that you're going to be able to communicate with them properly and they're going to understand what you're saying. And on the other hand, it's okay to say, I don't understand. I don't know everything. Nobody knows. Salesforce is huge. The platform is ginormous. There is so much out there that is available to you for information that it's like drinking from a fire hose every time you try to go to help and training. And it's totally okay to raise your hand and say, I don't understand you. And watch for body language and facial expressions. When I looked up and I looked around the room, everyone was just staring at me like I was the craziest person and how did they let me out of the asylum? And that blank stare means you have lost them. Just keep that in mind when you're talking to your customers.
Okay, my turn. A few years ago, I was a solo admin. I've been in consulting, I've done different things, and I didn't know that I had developers on a really high pedestal. As an example, I thought of developers more like car mechanics. So I really don't know anything about cars, but if my car is making a funny sound, I take my car to the certified mechanic at, what is it? Oh, it's in the garage. I was gonna say the car place, because I don't know anything about cars.
The garage.
Right. And I hand it over, and they magically, they know about the chip and the computer and the tire pressure and the engine and the stuff, and they just do the thing, and then they give it back to me, and it's fine. So developers code, and the platform's made of code, right? So if I have a problem, why can't I just call up a developer and they just look at like the mysterious back end and they can see all the stuff and just make it happen? The developers in the room were like, yeah, whatever.
That's not how it works.
You give us so much credit.
I do. I had you on a pedestal. So I found this out the very hard way at my first Dreamforce 4 years ago. I was a new solo admin. I had just started with a company the week before, and they had graciously sent me to Dreamforce. And I get the call that the UK cannot they can't save an opportunity. This is a sales organization. A few hours later, New York can't do it, and then Chicago, and then San Francisco. So this break was going all the way around the world. I didn't know the org very well. I was pretty freaked out, and I called Salesforce support. Somehow we put something in place, but I was pretty lost. It turns out it was a validation rule that one of the 12 people with system administrator privileges had put in place accidentally because they had asked for a special report from Salesforce support. Salesforce support asked the question, can we do this? We need to make a slight change. Can we do this in production? And they said, okay, because they didn't know the difference between production and a sandbox. And it broke the whole thing. The pain was going home and spending 4 weeks trying to figure this out and calling a lot of developers and getting really frustrated, and I'm sure they were pretty frustrated with me as well, because I had this idea that I've gone up 6 levels because I'm talking to a developer. Why can't you? And that's not how it works, so clickety.
Because he's not a car mechanic.
Exactly. So know that you can be in positions where, by virtue of the fact that you code, admins might think you know everything there is to know about Salesforce. And they may not know that automation can break code in the background. In this situation, there was just a little bit of code, just a little bit. How bad could it be? To bring the whole platform down. So it's not a given that administrators know what the effect of automation could be. So just keep that in mind. And the developer that won the day for me was the patient one that calmed me down, walked me through the whole thing, all the possibilities step by step, and also understood me that I didn't know these things. I didn't know about automation. And there it is. Jean, I know you've got one waiting too.
I've got a good one. I call it my little org of horrors. How many of you have an org of horrors? Yeah, it's painful. So I have this org, and I was blessed at this company. I had an awesome team of developers, a product owner. I had a co-admin, first time for me because I was a solo admin for 10 plus years. What I found out rather quickly was I was the most certified on the team, and I knew best practices really well. And maybe they didn't know how awesome Salesforce is and how native functionality can work really well together. And point and click is super easy. So I found this Visualforce page on an account page, and it was populating some information from a junction object. And if you're familiar with admin and a junction object, it has things that come with it. The pain was that some of the information that was populated couldn't be edited. The managers couldn't pull reports on it for whatever reason, and the agents couldn't search on it. So it was super painful, and people stopped looking at it and went into the system that it originated from. That's a huge pain point for me. I take Salesforce personally, and if you leave Salesforce to go to another system, I want to fix that. So I sat down with a developer and I said, hey, this is really painful and you have to update this every time we want to change or the data's wrong. How can we make this better? And what the heck is going on with your junction object? And he was like, well, what do you mean? I had to put something on the page layout. And I was like, okay, so let's play 20 questions of why. And I finally got down to it, and he's like, I did not know that related list came with a junction object. It was just something he didn't know. He coded that Visualforce. That was the easiest and first thing that he thought of. Not all developers are that way, but this guy was. And he's a super awesome dev guy. Love him to pieces, and he has done some amazing things. But this was super easy and all declarative. So we went in, we took the page, the Visualforce page off, retired it. I went in and added the related list in there, created a custom report so they could pull reporting on it, and we put some edit capability in there for permissions so all the super users could go in and edit information if they needed to. And then, of course, it's searchable now. It's like magic, right? Boom. All clicks, no code. So taming that little org of horrors in this instance, I was like, hey, dude, it's not complicated, right? Don't spend 3 hours doing all this coding that you don't need to do. Let me help you out. You go work on something really important, and let's put those related lists in. And then again, it's point and click. I love code. It can do amazing things, and I love stacking it on top of native Salesforce functionality to add to it. And my favorite is ask an admin. I sit with my tech team now at American Express so that if they have questions or they want to know something that's admin-based or declarative, or hey, is there anything out there before we start coding? I'm sitting right there with them. I don't mind if they ask me questions. I love it, so we can collaborate. And I always tell them, I'm like, hey dudes, talk nerdy to me. It's okay. If I don't understand, I'll tell you I don't understand. And with that, I'm going to hand it back to Leslie.
Okay. I had moved on from my car mechanic phase, and I was doing some consulting for a company that had just had a simple implementation completed, and I was going to do some simple work, create some automation and workflow, help with user adoption, really low-key, nothing too exciting. I go into the org, and I see that it has 42% test code coverage. That's bad. That's a bad thing. The absolute, if you haven't come across this yet, the absolute screaming minimum that you must have and cannot go below is
Audience participation. What is that magic number?
75%. And the choir sings 75. Right, 75%. You absolutely must have that, or you can. There's lots of things that you can't do. But in this case, this group just had an accidental admin, a new person. This was not her full-time job. There's no developer on staff. So I go in to find what's happened, and there's 3 packages left behind from the implementation. And I said, hey, what is this for? Oh, we had some special custom process that they were going to build, but we didn't like it, so we told them to turn it off. And they said they did. And left them with 42% code coverage. So I went to my developer friends now that I was in collaboration with, and we had to struggle with this. These 3 packages were integrated in such a way or caught together that you couldn't uninstall any one of them because they were related to the other 2. Didn't matter what order you tried to do it in. So I couldn't help at all. And actually the client they were very nice about it because we started calling it the alien, because it was very much like, the thing down the throat and the thing on the face, right?
Yes.
Okay. This means alien. Okay.
I like scary movies.
I thought it was an international symbol. But the developer did the surgery and had to peel all the things away bit by bit, line by line. It was a very difficult. I see some heads shaking. Maybe some people have seen this before. And it was a lot of work to get them back to 0, to get them just to a platform that had little or no automation and how much code coverage? At least 75%. Hopefully 100.
We like 100.
Okay, yes, we shoot for 100. So let's see, clicky, click, click. Thank you. I don't know how to write. So here's the big lesson.
Did they actually leave the country?
I can't, I'm bound by, I'm not allowed to write.
There's an NDA involved.
Yeah, there's an NDA involved. It's all sealed. There's a lot to think of in development in Salesforce. I've heard, did you say, I attributed it to Stephen Herod, but it was Parker.
I thought it was Parker.
That said,
Parker.
every 3 years, everything you write is going to be obsolete anyway. Not the apex, but the process, the function, the reason why the code was there. So it's not fair to go off on the developer team and say, they were jerks or they were stupid. Not like that. They just didn't know. They clearly didn't know what was going to happen long term. And that's a huge thing for developers to think about. Who's going to maintain the thing I'm building? Is this appropriate for this company? Do they understand what we're doing? Is a really important question. And somebody's got to come behind and clean it up. And they remember who you are because your name is everywhere in the org, which is, you kind of can't get away from that. The other thing is, if you're thinking about what you're doing or what you're interested in doing, if you're going to become a developer, there's a lot of fix-it work out there because of this cycle and this excitement about coding different processes and putting cool stuff in, that there's still a lot of learning going on out there, and there's a lot of work if you're good at CSI and if you're good at looking at someone else's code and figuring out what happened. And Jean, I'm going to let you tell the next one.
I'll tell another fun story in my org of horrors. We had a hard coding situation, and we learned the hard way, because that's the only way it's fun, right? Who has ever been on a Severity 1 page and knows what that is? So I'll tell you. It is when Salesforce is broken and they need your admin to fix it. And sometimes it isn't Salesforce is broken, sometimes it's what's attached to Salesforce that's broken. And obviously, if that is broken, Salesforce is broken, right? Yeah, sarcasm. Yeah, that was one day I got a page that said, hey, Salesforce is down. And I'm like, that's weird. I'm looking at the trust site. I see that it's up. What's really happening? What really happened was our website was down. It's connected to Salesforce. Awesome. More nervous, more anxious. Oh my God. All right, so let's figure this out. What's really broken? And it was the page on a public website that populates our public knowledge articles. And I knew this because I helped with what they were building. And so we went through with the UX developer, line by line, looking for something connected to Salesforce that might take the website down. What I found was, and I'm going to put the mic down after I say it, a long list of Salesforce IDs. Really long list.
That's clearly an international signal. We all knew what you meant.
Yes,
Yeah.
a very long list of Salesforce IDs. And I've been informed that you can figure out what object it goes with by the first 3 letters. Didn't know that. Thank you, Megan.
You're welcome.
But I did know what it was connected to. It was connected to our knowledge articles. So I just cut and paste those IDs in, one by one, 27 IDs into Salesforce's URL to find out what article was causing this problem. I found a wonderful article in draft. And when you put an article in draft and a website's trying to pull it, it can't find it. So that was our problem. Quickly put it back into production, whatever last version she had in, because she went to lunch. And pop, the website came back up. Yay, the admin saved the day. Awesome, right? Great. I feel good for that day that we fixed the problem, but now we have a bigger problem. Why in the world didn't we use native Salesforce functionality? There's an awesome bit of Salesforce functionality that would do what the developer had put in. So my takeaways is, hey, take it easy. Tell me what your code is doing. If you comment in your code and she would have put the knowledge article names in there, I knew how to search for them, but if I didn't know what was going on and I hadn't had knowledge previous of how they had built this, it would have taken my co-admin a really long time to figure this out because he's on Sales Cloud and I'm on Service. And yeah, we talk, but it would have taken him a long time to figure out. Please no code IDs in your code. It makes it really hard for us. There's better things and better ways to do that, and Megan will tell us that here in a minute. But my favorite thing to tell people is use native Salesforce functionality. A better way to do this, to put articles on a public website, is to use Salesforce Community, right? All that stuff works together already. Yeah. So to use Salesforce Community with knowledge articles and just make it public, it would have been so easy. So when I get a severity page 1, I say, keep calm, it's just code, we'll figure it out. And with that, I'm going to hand it back to Megan, and she's going to tell us how to make our code admin friendly.
Excellent, thank you, Jean. Going along with the hard coding thing, so this story goes back to when I was first working as an admin, and I was still learning a little bit about how things were working on the back end. And we had actually done a custom piece of software, just a custom implementation to do commissions and quota tracking for our team. This was great. It was awesome. It did everything we needed it to do. Here's the thing, though. We were growing like crazy. I started there. I was there for 3 years. It was 50 employees when I started, and we were at about 1,500 within that 3 years. As you can imagine, things in the business are going to keep changing. Nothing is going to last that long. So every time I needed to have a change made, whenever the business came up and was like, oh, we want to change commissions again, oh, we want to change quotas again, and I would then have to go, I didn't have a dev on my team, so I'd have to ask my admin if I could have someone from the operations team take time away from their regular job so that they could do the work that I needed to get done. When you're making a product, the operations team does not like that. They really don't like working in Salesforce at all. I started asking around and I started looking around to try and find another way to do this. There had to be a way that I could make these changes myself and not have to call a developer. So the first thing I did is I started looking at the code and trying to figure out what it does. Comments would have been very helpful. Eventually, I saw in the code, this is where all the information is relating to everybody's role so that we would know what their commission structure was going to be and how their quotas worked. Excellent. Figured out where it was. Now I have somewhat of a half-baked plan. I'm going to go ask the community what I'm supposed to do here to make it work. And started asking around, and I found out about this lovely thing called list custom settings. Oh my goodness, I could actually just have data that I can change to make all the code work differently. This was genius. I was so excited. So I then immediately made a ticket for my developer, changed the code for commissions to use custom settings so I can do stuff.
That was it.
That was it. That's pretty
a good
much. I had
ticket.
pretty much just taken.
Just throw the fancy words in there. Yeah.
I had pretty much just taken whatever my conversation had been on the success community and paraphrased it and put it into the ticket. But 15 minutes later, I get a call from the developer. You need me to do what? And I'm like, okay, so I'm so glad you responded to my poorly written ticket. So here's what I need. I learned about custom settings, and I heard that we can use them so that I can use data to change code. Is that real? And and the developer is like, how often is this going to be changing? I'm like, every single quarter till the end of time. And he was like, well, I would invest the extra time into this to use a custom setting and to get the custom settings set up, which he did. And it was awesome. I was so excited. I no longer had to bother my boss, who would have to go and bother operations. And I could make all these changes myself. And next slide. There are plenty of ways you can make your code admin friendly so that you do not have to sit there and do deployments and update code every single time. One thing I love are field sets. You're able to use them in Visualforce pages. You're able to use it so that you can add the new fields in there whenever you need to have them dropped in. So much better than having to manually write all that into your code and then have to have your admin call you every single time they need a new field added because they want it on that page layout, which of course they're going to want to do, why else would they have made the field? The other thing, list custom settings. Amazing. This was just one way that you can use them. They're awesome for so many different ways, so many different things in Salesforce. You have your security, everything's good, people can see them. You can go in and make the changes in the back end. You don't have to worry about tabs. You don't have to worry about your users screwing it up. This is for your admins to be able to sit there and be able to make the changes they need to make.
Love it.
Second, are going along with that, hierarchy custom settings. You'd mentioned validation rules before. Hierarchy custom settings are awesome to use in validation rules. Great way to write out profiles and users from being required to follow them. Nice little way to do a bypass without having to type in the system admin profile ID. Because I can tell you, no one's going to know what that is in the validation rule, and everybody's going to sit there and try and find it, and then they're going to be like, well, who is that now? But by using a hierarchy custom setting, you're able to do that. And then also, if you're not working with IDs, using custom metadata types, totally deployable. They're awesome. They're so much easier when you are going from environment to environment, especially if you have one of those clients that has like the 5 org process that you have to go through to deploy. That's going to save you so much time and effort so that you don't have to keep reloading that data. Brilliant takeaways. Communication is the ballgame, folks. It's all about talking to each other, admins and developers, adminelopers, having that conversation and keeping each other up to date on what exactly you're doing in the org and why you're making the changes you're making.
Communicating in the code.
Communicating in the code as well. Leave a clean trail. Use comments in your code. Don't leave a bunch of stuff laying behind that's not necessary. Keep your stuff clean, and you will just have a much happier time going forward with all of the possible tickets that could have been sent your way. Think about the future. And again, it's okay to say, I don't understand you. People say it all the time, admins and developers, and it's totally okay. It's part of life. You can't know everything. And then if you don't know the why, you're in trouble. If you're doing something just because it was on a ticket for your org, but you don't really know what it's doing or why you're doing it besides it's on a ticket, yeah, that's probably not a good idea. It's probably going to backfire very, very soon.
That's when you go back to the I don't understand you part, right?
So just respond with, I don't understand why you're making me do this, and they'll let you know.
Perfect. So we have some admin resources in here. If you don't know what a trail mix is, it's this really awesome thing on Trailhead where you can go in and pick badges and modules and put them all in a package and share them out. So I actually have an admin 201 trail that I have my dev guys go through and do. So it just gives them, some quick and dirty ways to know what's out there declarative, so we can have a good conversation. And Megan has a community quick start trail mix out there, so that would have definitely helped my UX developer understand community. Always Salesforce user groups. If you have one in your local community, which you should. How many did we hear this morning? I think like 173 user groups out there.
And
there's one near you. Go hang out with them. I know that I've had a lot of questions that my user group has helped me out with, and I know you got your org fixed just by talking to people in the user group. So it's a really good resource.
And they're fun too. Like
Yeah,
they are
super fun
for business. They're
Right.
fun too.
They usually have swag, food, and drinks. How can you go wrong?
Yeah.
Exactly.
And then Rad Women. I haven't gone through this program, but I know that Leslie has, and it's kind of amazing.
I wanted to say something about that. I'm very, very fortunate to have gotten, there's a lot of interest in it, and right now when you sign up, they do have to kind of do a lottery because it's very small. It's a small group of people, and the teachers, the coaches, are volunteering 10 weeks of time to walk people through this process. But it's worth signing up for if you're interested. If you get picked, it's an incredible experience. And I took it 2 years ago. I think it was in the second group that did the class. And this is like astonishing to me. This last round, I was a coach. I was like,
She's kind of amazing.
It's so exciting.
So, hey, it's like, if I could do that, then anybody.
Anyone can do it.
No, there's a very supportive group of people.
Yeah, definitely.
And we've got more Trailhead modules that'll be posted on our, afterwards in the agenda builder. These will also be posted as well. Or Jean, were you going to step on
If
you?
you come hang out and check out.
No, the custom metadata types, which I'm also learning about now. There's an awesome Trailhead module on that. Data modeling in general, always good to kind of look at the basics and get a feel about what some of the rules of the road are. And in particular, Jean put up the UX Research Basics module based on your
My
particular
website snafu.
website experience. Yeah.
So with that, if we have a couple minutes left, if you have a question and you want to come up to the mic so everybody can hear you, bring it on over. And I think we got one down here. Or we could just dance for you. That's fun.
We can sing, we can.
So I have a question about process automation. One thing you often hear, and it was, I think, for the most part repeated in this presentation is, if you can do something declaratively, you should,
Yes.
right? Because it's simpler and it's easier to modify down the line, and you don't have to talk to a developer, every time you want to modify it. In practice, sometimes I've done that, like a particularly complex process builder or something, and I kind of have this lingering doubt in the back of my mind, like, is this really the most robust way to do that, right? And I've had even good developers with knowledge of the declarative capabilities of the platform tell me flat out just don't use process builder, right? It's slow. So which I didn't take that advice. I didn't take the advice.
So I think you have to do what's best for your org, right? And try and do things natively Salesforce the best you can, and then code what you need to.
To go along with that, I'm a big fan of Process Builder and Visual Workflow. I think Flow is probably one of the most powerful tools that's available to admins and developers and Admineloper out there. I am constantly pushing my dev team to start using it more, and it takes some time to get used to. I know for administrators, it doesn't work the same way as workflows. You need to think like a developer. So you just need to make sure, are you checking for exceptions in your flows? Are you making sure that you're covering all your use cases and things like that? But definitely along with Jean, it is really what's best for your org. There's a time and a place for, declarative work, and there's a time and a place for custom code. So keep that in mind.
Thanks for your question.
Hi, what do you recommend? What do you recommend when the customer already has a solution in mind that they want? Because like users that I have, they
Why?
always want a checkbox.
No.
And so we end up with the new program, new program, new program.
Yeah.
Like just have a date in there.
I'll let you take it.
Oh
you're
gosh,
consultant.
okay, consulting land, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so it's a communication issue, and there's a sales technique where you try to talk about the benefits, right? So you're particularly in reporting, checkboxes don't really translate as well as people would hope that they can. That's
Talk
that's
to
a
Steve
go-to.
Rowe.
Reports. Oh gosh, they're
Oh
awful
yeah,
in
yeah,
reports.
that's a go-to. The other is the excitement about adding things to a page. There's only, you could add the page forever, but that's not a good user experience. How hard is it for the user? Sometimes we kind of do a little more user testing so that the users will go, oh geez, I gotta check like 5 checkboxes, and we let the user
Show them the pain.
speak. But yeah, I deal with that all the time. I think we all do all
Yeah.
the time. And Salesforce is easy. And so the users are always going to get excited and want to participate in the solution. So you got to respect their voice in the conversation.
One thing that I've noticed is if you take the time to explain why it's better not to do that, while still keeping in mind, what it is that they're trying to do and why they think that they do need some ridiculous checkbox for every new program, 2016, 2015. But trying to explain to them, I get where you're coming from, but really this is going to let you do so much more, and show them those other features and how it's actually going to end up being, more valuable. Taking the time to actually do that really does work. I know it just sounds like it's something people say, but it really does work most of the time. And there are
Most
times
of
when
the
they're not going to want to do it.
And sometimes they just want a checkbox.
Yeah, sometimes they just want a checkbox.
Thank you. You mentioned trail mix as a way to package your badges and share it with people, and I was wondering what's the best way to study an area of Salesforce and let people know that you're competent with it. Like, for example, I have a friend who's new to Salesforce and trying to learn everything, and how does she say I'm competent at workflow rules? Because right now she's creating scratch, developer orgs and getting a bunch of fake data and saying, here's 10 workflow rules. And you have to have real data to show that, you have to work with real data to show that you're competent. But if you work in an actual company, you can't be hey, here's the 10 workflow rules I did and share private data. So how do you let other people know?
So do you mean
that
in a job situation, an interview, or within the company on the team, I've learned how to do this?
I'm specifically talking about within a team, you show your boss, hey, I'm competent at this new area, workflow rules.
So I think Trailhead is great to show that, hey, I've gone through badges and things like that, and here are the things that I've learned. I know my developers keep a file in GitHub of all the kinds of code and things that they've done to show their skill level. I actually have a couple sandboxes that I keep things in that I know are important to me to be able to show that, hey, I really do know how to do this. So that could be a possibility. But yeah, that's definitely an interesting question.
I'm a big
Figure out how to
fan
do that.
of also, one of the ways that you can show people that you know your stuff is to give back to the Ohana and to go on the 6 community and Twitter and answer some questions and show people that that's what you're doing and get some best answers. It's going to show on your profile. People are going to be able to see it. Keep doing Trailhead.
That's great, yeah.
And you're going to have that information available for people to see.
Get involved.
Get
Yeah.
involved.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, everyone,
That's
for
the
coming
show.
and hanging out with us.
Woohoo!
I'm going to be the short person.
Now it's got to come unhook us.